Hi, my name's Hayden Smith. I'm a geologist and project manager here at Atlanta, and today I'm going to be taking you around the property, showing you our prospective targets regionally from the Atlanta North and South targets, as well as around the Silver Park. Today I'm actually going to start here at the Silver Park East target, where we're actually standing on the drill pad of where we drilled hole SP21. Now this hole was a really interesting kind of a discovery hole for us at our initial stages of regional exploration. It returned 1.11 grams per ton gold equivalency over 24.5 meters. What's really exciting about this hole is it hosted mineralization with a lot of parallels to the Atlanta resource, specifically enrichment along the unconformity, which we're well acquainted with at the Atlanta resource in the terms of a silica breccia horizon at the unconformity of the Paleozoics and the volcanics. It also hosted a good amount of mineralization within the volcanic units itself. This is again a parallel that we see at the Atlanta resource, specifically within the West Atlanta Graben zone, where we get zonation of gold within the volcanics as well as at the unconformity, and in the dolomite as well we are picking up gold mineralization. Silver Park East target has a pretty blatant CSAMT anomaly, something that's really drawn our interest, and it seems to correlate with some of the intercepts that we've drilled, specifically like hole SP21. So here we are standing on one of the drill pads of the Silver Park West target. This is our furthest west target, just about a kilometer from the Silver Park East target to the west. Here is where we've intercepted in multiple drill holes broad blankets of mineralization within strongly altered and oxidized volcanics. One of these drill holes that we've actually put down over the Silver Park West target came back with 0.094 grams per ton, so just shy of a tenth of a gram over 115 meters. The things that we're seeing in this area are really exciting because we have broad blankets of disseminated gold mineralization, as well as tracer elements that we've come to really know is associated with gold here at the Atlanta resource itself, that being arsenic, antimony, moly, and some other things. So there's vectors telling us that we have some kind of plumbing going on, and with that plumbing, some of the drilling has also shown that we do have some structures with kind of our stair-stepping faults down to the west.
When you're looking at something like this, you see the dolomite right here, but over there you see, okay, it's not the same rock unit at the same height, so we know there's structures playing here. We see these little topographic lows, topographic highs, different kinds of rocks on either side, so we know there's a fault structure. And considering this being basement, it's a deep-seated fault structure. Cal sent me over to Silver Park West to go sampling for rock chips. And for a while like that, didn't find anything that I thought was too much of interest, and I finally came across some rocks that I thought looked pretty good. Great silicification, great oxidation, some hydrothermal texture. And I couldn't wait for that assay to get back. And when it did come back, that was 4.58 grams per ton. And that opened up another area for us to start exploring further. Went back to follow up on those samples and got some 3 others that were above 1 gram per ton. So there's definitely potential on that dome over there, and we're gonna find the gold. It's a felsic dome contacting the basement dolomite. On the other side, we have some really high-grade rock chip samplings. So we know there's heat sources that are taking advantage of the structures. So we know there's potential for gold mineralization, intrusives.
Now, what we're kind of aiming for is to find some horizons and some intrusions that are possibly preserved within these down-drop blocks. And it's with these holes that we've drilled so far that seem to be vectoring us to the west. Now, this target with the Silver Park East target reside along the Silver Park lineament. This is obviously our 7-kilometer strike length area that goes all the way from the South Atlanta to another prospective area at the property, the Western Knolls. So we're dealing with a large area that seems to have multiple evidences of anomalous gold mineralization. Another thing that's really kind of important to note is this mineralization seems to be hosted in what we're calling the Silver Park rhyodacite, which seems to be chemically and possibly hydrothermally related to the Atlanta rhyodacite, which now that we know that the Atlanta rhyodacite is one of the main drivers for some of the highest grade gold mineralization within the resource and was kind of a major player for deposition of gold across the West Atlanta Graben. So the next place we're going to be going actually is way out there. That's our Atlanta North target, 4.5 kilometers north of the resource. Here at the Atlanta North, we're well north of the resource, again at 4.5 kilometers. The northernmost drilling that's really been done here at Atlanta would be in the North Extension target. This is something that we've successfully drilled out and chased mineralization well to the north, around 600 to 700 meters north. But once you get past that, historic drilling and known mineralization seems to disappear. It was thought that maybe there was no extension of that mineralization well to the north. But what we've been finding through field reconnaissance, rock chip sampling, soil sampling, infill grids, as well as preliminary regional drilling, is that we're running into a very similar style of mineralization and a very similar structural setting as to the Atlanta resource. Here at Atlanta North, what we seem to be dealing with is more steeply dipping structures to the north, offsetting basement faults and graben blocks of dolomite. And where we're seeing mineralization, anomalous gold mineralization, is going to be in our dolomite basement as well as in our silica breccia units as well. What there also seems to be is evidence of crossing structures that coincide with our soil anomalies at surface, as well as our rock chip anomalies that we've taken from exploration pits dug in the early days by prospectors. So we have put a couple holes down, preliminary regional exploration holes, just to test for potential gold mineralization. And what we've actually found is that there seems to be a bit of a zonation for anomalous gold along what would be the trace of the West Atlanta fault structure that we've carried well north from the resource itself. Now we know this fault structure, the West Atlanta, is an extremely important mineralizing event for the resource. And so it was our hypothesis that if it's big enough to deposit what it did in the resource, is there any potential laterally both to the north and south for that continuation? What we're seeing in some of these drill holes is as we get closer to these structures, we're starting to pick up anomalies that are quite interesting, and it give us a lot of promise that there's a potential for more mineralization that, again, is 4.5 kilometers past the resource. We have a pretty big drill gap.
I believe the closest holes that we actually have that have intercepted gold mineralization are 3 kilometers to the south of where we are right now. Those were drilled in the 90s, and they intercepted anomalous mineralization along the Paleozoic unconformity.
So if you can imagine, we have about a 3-kilometer gap between holes well to the north that have mineralization. It's just a matter of trying to connect those and chase that in a direction where we're going to get increased grades. And then we have our other target, the Greater Atlanta South target, which is 2.5 kilometers along strike length south of the resource. So here we are on the southern end of the South Quartzite Ridge, looking over behind me the Atlanta South target. This is about a 2.5 kilometer long strike behind to the south of the Atlanta resource. There's a couple interesting targets here that are starting to look very prospective. We were targeting the South Quartzite Ridge for its intrusion potential and host rocks that potentially may be beneath the Eureka Quartzite cap. From preliminary drill holes, what we've been finding is some very interesting styles of mineralization within the Pogoneep limestone. This is something that we have yet to see in our drilling as well as previous historical drilling operations. So what we're doing with that is we're following up in our modification 4 phase 3 advancement program to try to track this mineralization and see if we can't continue to find these unique and new styles of mineralization on the property. So clearly what this is telling us with all of these 3 major target domains is we're dealing with a system that is potentially large enough to deposit strong mineralization, not just within the resource that we know of, but in other satellite deposits across the property.